Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our panel on the future of collaboration tools. We have got a good group joining us today. They're all getting their cameras and mics set up. So in just a second, we're going to have everybody kind of do an introduction. This is a panel discussion, so questions from the audience are welcome and needed. Otherwise, you're going to just hear us, talk on and on and on. So go ahead and send your questions into the chat window, and then we'll start talking through that. So this is a way of quick introduction. My name is Jennifer Mason. I am a SharePoint Server MVP, a part of the community. Been doing a lot of different things with end users. My motto is I'm allergic to semicolons and syntax, so anything you can do with SharePoint that doesn't require those. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you guys today about the future of collaboration. And we'll start up in the top corner with Benjamin and then kind of go around the squares, and everybody could do just a quick introduction.
Well, good morning, everyone. Very happy to be here. My name is Benjamin Nyland. I am, I don't know. I'm here from Montreal. I'm French. And, I focus on everything that's a non-developer, trying to find new solutions, new ways to work. But that's essentially it. How about you, Riz? Or Eric, I should say.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Eric Riz here from Toronto, Canada. I am the founder and CEO of Empty Cubicle. Empty Cubicle is the world's first job search and recruitment platform based on verified data. I'm also a SharePoint MVP and looking forward to the collaborative chat this morning.
And my name is Christian Buckley. I am an Office 365 MVP based out of beautiful downtown Bellevue, Washington. I'm the Managing Director of Americas for GT Consult. We are a full-service consulting company and managed services provider based out of South Africa and, of course, here in Bellevue.
All right, good morning. My name is Michelle Caldwell, and I am a SharePoint Server MVP as well. And I tend to focus most of the time on user adoption, requirements gathering, governance, strategy, those types of topics. I, like Jen, am allergic to syntax and commas. I don't write code and I don't build servers. I work at Avanade, and I am the Director and Regional Service Line Lead for the Heartlands, which is Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, and Tennessee. Happy to be here.
And I believe we have Ben Robb joining us as well. He's going to join us with voice without video. So, Ben, do you want to give us an intro?
Thanks, Jen. I'm Ben Robb. I'm from London, and I'm also, like many others on this panel, a SharePoint MVP.
While we are waiting for questions to come up in the chat window, some of the things I wanted to talk about, this session is about the future of collaboration tools. And so I kind of wanted to talk about everyone's take on what has happened and what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the last year when it comes to collaboration tools. And when it comes to how things are going differently. I know Microsoft is changing so much right now and how they do things. So I think one way to talk about the future and to talk about what we're looking into is to kind of evaluate a little bit of the past and where we're at in the present. So Christian, why don't you kick us off and just talk to us about, the state of the union of where are collaboration tools right now and how do they fit into this big picture of this world we live in?
Well, I think, this is a pretty heavy topic for a lot of organizations. And I have my personal opinions of where things are, and maybe not everyone will agree, but part of what's happened is that you have over the last couple of years a focus, a change in focus away more of the structured, document-centric collaboration to this idea that we need to have these more social capabilities. And it's going to impact our adoption and level of engagement. And what that the underlying topic, and I think a lot of the technologies tend to mask what's actually happening, is people realizing that there's a disconnect with the end user experience across these tools that generally IT would go out and deploy and make available, and organizations really start.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I think what we've seen, we're talking about what we've seen in the last year or so, what's been changing, and there's a couple of things we're starting to see a lot of new tools being introduced, but I think it goes a little bit beyond that, and I think it was one of my takeaways from Ignite, and I know we stopped talking about Ignite almost now, but when they come in, he was talking about the digital workplace. What's changed? Generally, it's just that people in organizations are not scared of technology anymore, and I think that has had a huge impact in us in IT generally, but just in overall business, because nowadays you go online and people aren't scared to subscribe to a new service and start working with it. So I think that has definitely brought some new trends at the office, but it's also changing the way IT works. And it, of course, leads into our collaboration tools. It leads to the changes in what we're seeing with Office 365. And, I mean, we're going to talk about the different products, but that's besides the point. What's different is the people that are using the technology and that change that it's bringing. So I think that's what I've seen generally, right? We started seeing this with Yammer. I mean, Yammer's been there for a while, but as soon as they brought the open concept of open groups and open communication, and suddenly you saw a lot of that getting led through the business bringing the changes and business leading the IT initiative.
Good question. I think there's a lot of different things to consider at this point. I think that to take it up a step, if we were to talk strategically, there is so much content right now, and there are so many different ways for people to communicate. What's missing in a lot of organizations is a strategy that actually makes sense and allows people to connect on the same level. So if I was going to send out a document, how would I send that? Would I send it through email? Would I send it out through Yammer? Would I send a link through email? Would I actually attach the document? There are so many different ways of sending the same information, the same message, that people are lost around collaboration. They don't know how to connect themselves. They don't know how to succeed. By doing something that's so simple, such as reading a document, if I can't get it in an effective way, I can't read it. And all of a sudden you have paralysis instead of a speedy, expeditious situation, which is what collaboration is all about. Michelle?
All right, so a couple of things I've seen in the industry in the past year that have changed. One is the move away from, a lot of large customers are moving away from highly customized environments and trading that off for things like what's offered in Office 365 to gain agility, right? So they're giving up some of the old hat, it has to look specifically a certain way or function a specific way for our unique needs. this is good enough, it meets most of our needs, let's move with it because we can do it quickly. The other thing I've seen along the lines of what Christian mentioned earlier around social is the evolution, I guess, of desire for social is not only do I want to have a conversation, but I want to have it in context to a document or something that's some sort of asset in the corporate arena. And I want it to all be contextual and easy to understand for the end users. And then lastly, from an upgrade and migration perspective, I've also noticed that it's no longer good enough to justify an upgrade based on new feature sets. There has to be a compelling business case for IT organizations to win the money over from their executives for upgrades or to move to the cloud. So those are some of the big trends I've noticed in the past year that have been changing.
And I hope so. So can you hear me?
And that's not this then.
Can you hear me?
The transition as we go about the usage of the term collaboration no longer really means, when we first started with SharePoint, when you say collaboration, it was like, oh yeah, SharePoint's my tool and I do this and I share documents and I do different things, and it's gone away from being with any type of tool and it's just something that we do. So all of these buzzwords that they've thrown around, like you can almost take the technology out of it because it doesn't matter what those pieces are, but it's the idea and the concept of sharing data across different mediums with different people at different times. And so as people are starting to do that, the tools are becoming different. You're starting to see many tools to do many different things, and it's all just different. It's a different mindset when you go in and have that conversation. So I've really seen that start to happen in a lot in the last year, which kind of speaks to what Michelle was saying, is features kind of become irrelevant. It has to do with what's the business value and how are we actually using these pieces, and that's going to justify the money that we put into it and the things that we spend. So we did have one question from the group in the massive amount of changes that have come out with collaboration tools. Delve is the latest and greatest shiny object, and so in the group,
Yeah, so we, because of our background at Avanan, obviously we eat the dog food often, and one of the ways I best described this to an internal salesperson when it first rolled out, because they're like, why would I care about this? Why would I even use it? And the best example I could give them, and this is how it helps me internally, because we have massive amounts of data, right? And I used to spend tons of time, even though search works pretty well, just looking through large amounts of knowledge management databases and portals to find the right information, especially for us when we're writing like RFPs or things like that for customers. Now with Delve in our environment, it brings all that stuff to me because it knows of the interactions I've had with that content in the past, the relationships I have, so it kind of gives me this presentation fabric, if you will, of all the things that one, the content I've been interacting with, perhaps things I've worked on or authored in the past, or things I have access to that, interestingly enough, I found out when we went to Delve, I didn't know I had access to. So, you know, message here, definitely make sure your security is squared away. It wasn't a security issue for us, but there's all this stuff that was just presented to me very, very easily, and I didn't have to go out hunting for it. So it made my life from a large enterprise content locating perspective so much faster and easier. So time saver, that was the big way that I sold it internally, and a presentation layer, which is really all that Delve really is for us right now, leveraging the Office graph.
How about anybody else? Christian, do you have any thoughts on Delve?
That I need to know. Like you're trying to understand deep into it. It needs to go into that Vulcan mind meld and understand what it is that I'm looking for. That's really what Delve seeks to do, and then it also then learns from, with the machine learning aspect, learns from our behaviors and then refines those. So each time that I'm going in and I'm using the platform, it's going to learn from those activities and provide back a personalized result based on that activity. So it's not exactly search, it's a little bit different, but it is, the whole purpose is to surface those things that the system understands. This is where you're most active. Here's what we believe that you'll be looking for next based on your patterns, your history, your actions. How's that?
Right. No, that's great. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? And remember, if you have questions for the group, go ahead and put them in there so we can hop to those next.
Polished, and maybe in a not
that
it's not polished yet, but it's not.
I use when I get the question, what is Delve? Oh, Ben, you right there?
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
What do you mean? Okay. I have a very simple explanation of what Delve is when I'm asked, and I just refer to it this way. If you've ever gone to a website and done whatever you need to do on that site, then you go to a second site and you see an ad for the first site, that's Delve. It's that type of intuitive, knowing what you're looking for, knowing where you're going, knowing where you've been type of contextual search.
Caroline over there, they don't care what SharePoint is or where things are. They just want to open it up, and if they have to work with these files, they're going to work with these files. So at the bottom it says where it is stored in our architecture, in our information architecture, the tag. They don't want to know about it. The authors want to know about it, and that's another discussion. And lastly, I've been using boards quite a bit because I like to present the information to someone, and often that information comes from different teams. Some people were working on it here at the ShareGate office in the marketing team. Then we have some things in the design team. So I'll put it all together in a board like Pinterest and send it to the product owner or whoever needs to see that together. So it's been very, very nice at finding the document and presenting it in some ways. Not to mention the new blog things. But anyways, that's what I had to say about it.
Cool. So another question that comes up in the group, and I've heard this one a lot. We've got a couple of good ones in there right now, but the first one I'll pass to the panel is, with all of the changes and all of the, magical boards that are just pushing information to me and it has everything that I need and I can find whatever I want, what about security? I mean, sometimes the response that people first see when they see that is, oh crap, if I can see this, who else can see this? So how are all of these new tools and this new way of thinking and this new environment, how are they impacting security and how we need to plan for things? And I think I'll pass it up to Eric first. I don't know which, maybe this side. Yeah, I'll pass it up to Eric first, and he can kind of get us started with this one.
Well, it's a very tricky question right now. And on the security panel yesterday afternoon, we addressed this a little bit, which is just to say, there's a big question mark right now around the security that you need, the governance you have in place, trying to empower people to use the products and the tools that they have in order to get the information they need in order to get their job done, and doing so in such a way to try to give them the information they need. And really, it's something that there are a lot of questions around, not a lot of answers to. So I think high-level policies that lock down information at a role level, not necessarily at individual level, is a good starting point.
There's been some comments in the chat room, and Bob makes a really good point that, security trimming is still enabled. What I find, though, is that mistakes in security are a lot more visible. So I might have things, locked down incorrectly, and, maybe I'm sharing something with Michelle and I'm not supposed to, but if Michelle doesn't go to that library, she never sees them. But all of a sudden, Michelle's in Delve, and she's seeing stuff that she maybe shouldn't see, and it's because I really made a mistake with security. So I know sometimes that can really freak people out, but it does warrant us having, I think, to explain things a little bit differently and make sure that people understand how security works in Delve. Michelle, do you have any comments about security and how you plan for it with all these new crazy tools?
Sure. So, one of the things that we lost the security by obscurity a long time ago with enterprise search. The thing that's changed is there was still some, obscurity because if I didn't know, like you mentioned, Jen, to search specifically for that item that I wasn't supposed to have access to, it wouldn't come up in my search results. The thing that we really need to focus on in this new world is, one, I think we need to train our users, right? If we have certain term sets or data sets that are supposed to be confidential or highly restricted, they need to understand what those data classifications mean. But we also have to make it easy for them to for that data to either automatically be tagged correctly, leveraging some third-party tools, and we'll see what Office 365 has to bring in the future, but to don't make it a hurdle for users to do the right thing. And in reality, I mean, I've had customers go through this, activate Delve, holy crap, here's some information that showed up in somebody's experience I shouldn't have. You can turn that off for a period of time, remediate the issue, and then turn it back on. So it's not like once you turn it on, you're all in and you can't back out if you find there's an issue that you need to take care of. So people need to remember that, right? That you can empower it, and if you find a problem, you can actually turn it off to take care of it. And now I'm frozen.
About this, yes, you are frozen. What's funny is that when we made the move from 2010 to 2013, we had this experience. So we had the closer integration with the fast search, and a lot of customers had
and I definitely agree with all the points that were made, and excellent points. And I find it really depends on what the organization is. Wow, if I could say that on a Monday. What is it? Is it Monday? Wednesday? Okay.
I say that they were lax on security. I mean, a lot of people were dumping a lot of content.
Trying to keep track. All right, no, but honestly, I think already if we're working with things like Office 365, where we're seeing the new updates, of course, even in SharePoint 2013, we see most of the security. Microsoft's aware of it. They know security is one of the biggest concerns on all cloud things, and everything really. So already we're seeing in the interface lots of changes, so people can quickly see if the document is shared with someone. You can hover, you can see, if we're talking about Delve still, Delve shows who it's shared with, how many people. So as a person, if you're worried about your content, of course, you can always take a peek, and as some of the collaboration aspects are changing, and some workloads are moving into groups even, they put a really great front window into who's a member of the group, and members will be able to see the files. So there are tons of things like that to help put the, how can I say this, the security presentation layer right in front of our faces, so that anyone can see and interact, and not necessarily wait for IT to take charge. And then when we're talking about larger organizations, well, obviously then we're going to have to go into those processes and governance guidelines, and not to say that smaller organizations shouldn't have those, but in most cases the reality is that we don't necessarily take the time, even though we should. So I think things change, but at the same time the way we manage security is not really different. We just have to be vigilant. We have to put processes into place, as mentioned many times, so I won't repeat it there. But I don't think I think it's more of a how can I say this, a feeling, of a scared feeling, than something that I've actually seen happen in real. Of course, it always happens in all scenarios, but yeah, that's why I feel about it on this Monday morning.
it makes security by obscurity a thing of the past, really. Like not anything you can do anymore. And I know a lot of places, sometimes that's the easiest way to do things. So they have to decide, okay, I'm really going to share this or I'm not, and they have to make decisions. So all interesting things. So the next topic that we're going to cover, this is a fun one. With all the changes in the collaboration tool, we went from being in a SharePoint list where we could have metadata to then we have a board where we can, put things on a Delve board and then we can tag things, but the tagging isn't really all the same. So how does tagging fit into this new world order of tools? And what is an organization to do as they're trying to figure out what the heck to do? And I just have a feeling that Christian Buckley has a strong opinion on this one, so I am going to toss it to him first.
Well, I just say that, as far as the latest, greatest technology, the story is not yet done. I know that, within the MVP summit this last fall, those that, we're all attending, there was a lot of feedback around the fact that in the board story, and so from the broader Delve experience, that it was disjointed, the metadata story disjointed from the SharePoint story. Like if we have managed metadata, do we have the ability to promote managed metadata over to automatically create boards, for example? No. So that's not there today. And so it's just it's a separate activity. So although you will likely go and create boards around some of your main tags or metadata from your managed metadata. So that's something that you need to think about as you are an early adopter of these new tools is, what is your strategy for going and building out and managing those, the boards and giving guidance to your end users of how they use that. Because metadata, the need for it does not go away. Delve relies on the fact that you have metadata associated with your content, and that's how it helps find that relevant contextual content. That's one way, not just the interaction that you provide. What it adds to that, if you think about every interaction you have with a piece of content or with a person, that's anything that's found through the Office Graph, is that you just by nature of interacting with that content, liking it, sharing it, having a conversation around it, adds to the folksonomy, adds to the user-generated metadata associated with that content. Therefore, it's making the traditional search more powerful by association. So I don't know if anybody else has any deeper thoughts into
and send it to someone in a way of collecting it, but it does not mean, and it never does when we use Delve board, it doesn't mean that the document isn't still in a document library with content types, with metadata and managed metadata, and then just surface through Delve, through boards for an easy consumption in some ways. So I think there's different layers there. There's a lot of people in many organizations where and still future people that are still going to use SharePoint for that whole metadata experience, that complete control. But sometimes, and in many cases, and this is the reality, unfortunately, is business users go elsewhere. They go look for Dropbox. I'm getting sent things through Dropbox all the time or OneDrive, and it's not through SharePoint links and so on. And just because it's overly complicated, sometimes we just need that layer. And I think as we're going and as Delve is also bringing that search and discovery, and that's what the boards really are for me. The boards is a way to search and discover the content. It's not a way to classify necessarily the content in the location where it is stored. That's something else. So for me, I really look at it as two layers, and it's not complete. It's on its way. That's why I'm thinking a good year of more and more and more meat, if I could say that, will make it better. But right now, it's a journey. I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, so I'm not going to make any jokes, but a year of meat is going to make it better. That's the best quote.
the best quote of the day on this Monday. I love it. I think that, I agree with you. I agree with a lot of the stuff that Reuven is saying in the chat window about how there really isn't a silver bullet yet, and there's a place for everything. I think with taxonomy, it's kind of like what you said, Benjamin. You have to know what requires what level of tagging. And if you really do have a structure where that tagging is bringing value and you're using that and your users are using that, don't change that up now. I mean, we don't even really know fully what's coming. One thing that we have seen over and over again with first release is that they put out these minimally viable products. And so they put out an MVP version of a product, and hardly ever does the first version of the product have any type of administrative functionality control. It's just kind of, here's some features, let's get some telemetry on it and keep building it. But then usually on the next go-around, we start to see admin features. And so I wonder if on the third go-around, we're going to start to see these tagging features. So I don't know that we fully have enough information to know fully where Microsoft is going. I'd love to have this conversation with Christoph in our keynote on Thursday, which is tomorrow, Ben, not to be confused with Tuesday. But, maybe that's something that you and Christoph can really kind of dig into and see. I don't know that they've really given clear answers to it yet. Tagging is important in some cases, and then in other cases it kind of needs to be that free-for-all. It's that whole folksonomy versus taxonomy, and it's the same story that's always been there. It's just what tools are we using and how to go about doing those different things. So, Riz, do you have any comments or thoughts on this one? I know you've probably got some big strategic thoughts for us here.
Well, I'm not sure who this Reuven guy is in the chat, but I agree with him as well. And generally speaking, we're all on the same page here. And yes, I'm going to go strategic because that's my safety net. If you go strategic, you can just sort of get everything in there. The biggest issue right now, I feel very strongly about the fact that collaboration is really broken. There's too much information, there's too much content, we don't know what to tag, we don't know how to tag it, we don't know where it should be stored. And organizations really have to get a better sense of the tools they're using, the information that they want to store, how they want to recognize content, who's responsible for it, and really take a 101 at the content layer first, and then decide the tools they want to use to store it, the tools they want to use to tag it, and what the expectations are of the content. Because so much information is now being maintained just in email. Information is coming into email, it's relevant, it's pertinent, it's critical, and people don't know where to store that. So until we have a handle around the information that's coming in and the purpose of it and how it's going to be used going forward, their tagging conversation is one which really is secondary to the primary to what do we have and how are we using it.
Awesome. Oh, really, really awesome feedback. I think the next question, which kind of leads into it, and I'm going to punt this one up to Benjamin first when we go, is, okay, so we kind of talked about this. We've got Delve. We've talked about security. Now we've talked about when do we use metadata and when do we don't. When do we don't? When do we not use metadata? And I think that brings us to the next question of, how the heck do we know when do I use what tool for what? We've got Yammer, we've got groups, we've got SharePoint sites, we've got Yammer, we've got groups, we've got everything. What should we be using when, and how do I go about finding those pieces? So I'm going to pass that one first to Benjamin, which I guess he's just up. We're going to pass that to him.
Be able to, no matter what people have chosen to use, you'll still be able to bring it all together into what they are calling the group fabric. Right, so not to confuse groups with a product. Group isn't a team site. It isn't something specific. It brings things together where a team is working on, so that whether they used Yammer, whether they use the Skype for Business chat, or whether they use something else, it's going to appear in that Delve discussion profile for that team, or it's going to appear that Delve activity for that team. And I think that's the vision. Right now, it's a very difficult time, and Eric said it really, really. I'm not going to quote that collaboration is broken, but it's definitely very difficult as we're doing this transition period. What do you think, Eric?
Sorry about that. Sorry, Ben.
You want me to pick up on the quote you just made from me? I totally agree. I totally agree with you 1,000%.
Michelle, do you have anything to add to this one? I think Michelle is mysteriously here coughing with no video.
Yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, obviously I coughed in the middle of Ben's dissertation there. So the one thing I would add about Wendy's, at the end of the day, it's about understanding like what's the purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. And two, you have to also consider what's easiest for your users to adopt and use. Like what are they going to lean to, right? Because I can tell users all day long, I want them to use, let's say Yammer, for example, for these types of conversations and not groups for the same type. And if they want to use groups, at the end of the day, if it's available, they're going to use it anyway. So you also have to pay attention to their behaviors and habits and trends when you're mapping out, what to use when within your organization. Because if something's working really well, but maybe it's not the best tool out there for them, but they like it and it's useful, the reality is it's going to be hard to move them off of that. So something to consider, right? We always have to be considering from an adoption perspective, what's going to work best as well.
In one of the sessions this morning, Rob Bogue had a quote up there where he basically said culture always trumps strategy. And that kind of goes into or culture eats strategy for lunch or something along those lines. And it kind of goes to what Michelle is saying. The best tools are only going to be the best tools when you are using them and when you can get people to do them. And so one of the things that I like about groups that's different than team sites is team sites can be traditionally a little bit hard to use. And in some organizations, teaching a group of people how to go create lists and libraries and documents and stuff like that is a lot of work and difficult, and you don't get a lot of returns. But with groups, it's just kind of there, and it just kind of works, and they don't have to leave Outlook. And so those are some of the things that I think people like. But that doesn't mean groups are going to work for everybody. And so it's going to be kind of this evolution of things as we get to certain points. So we have about 15 minutes left. And so the question that I want to end with is a fun one. It's a doozy. I'm going to pass it to, let's see, Michelle first. So we're going to pass it to Michelle. Everything that we've really been talking about has been about groups and has been about Delve and has been about all of these cloud-first things. So what happens to someone who says, I'm not going to the cloud, or I'm not thinking about the cloud, or I am definitely here on-prem for a long time? How does that impact and change what I'm doing, and what do I have to look forward to? So, Michelle, I'm going to pass you that one first, and then others can start thinking of their answers, and that'll be the one that we kind of most likely end with today.
Yep. So a couple of things, couple of points here. One, in the past, right, with Office 365, and Microsoft's been in the cloud for a long time with collaboration, right? This isn't something new for them, but in the past it's been let's bring Prem to the cloud. So on-prem has been the dominant determiner of what to expect from a feature set perspective. What's changed in the last year to 18 months is that Microsoft is saying we're going to bring the cloud to you on-prem, and we're going to see some of that later this year. More predominantly with the patch coming to 2013, where if you're on-prem and you want to take advantage of Delve and some other capabilities that's offered in the cloud, you'll be able to do that. But with the release of SharePoint 2016 on-prem, we're going to see more and more of those cloud-first capabilities represented in the on-prem version of SharePoint. So if you're going to be sticking on-prem exclusively for a long time to come and you're looking enviously at Office 365 features, there's still hope, right? They're still investing, the product team, in bringing some of those features to you on-prem. So pay attention to the roadmap that they're publishing and updating quite often on what's coming, and pay close attention to what they're going to be offering you in the 2016 version. And then the other thing I would challenge those that are exclusively on-prem for a manner of probably multitude of good business reasons is, maybe re-examine what workloads could go into a hybrid environment. Maybe some of those workloads don't need to be so exclusively held on-prem. Even if it's something like an extranet to start, might be something to look at. But I think there's lots of exciting things coming for the on-prem customer, as we all heard at the Ignite conference here about a month and a half ago.
Yeah. And one thing that Dan mentioned is, what about those that for very specific reasons are never going to be hybrid or cloud? And I think at this point in the game, the best thing that you can do is build out the solutions to the best that you can internally using the tools that are available. When 2016 comes out, look and see what the changes are made there. But then furthermore, stay as up to date as you can on all of the new features and provide feedback to Microsoft on the business scenarios that you're facing, on how the features would work for you, what they are doing, why you can't move to the cloud. Microsoft is listening right now, and it's something that I think has really changed in the last 3 or 4 years. Through the channels that they have, they are listening and trying to understand customers. And so by you being able to go in and say, I have to be on-prem for these reasons, but here's the business value of how these features work, getting that information to them is going to help them make those decisions. And the more that they hear that information, the more they can make those decisions. So I think right now, if you are an on-prem only customer, you're probably going to feel like you're missing out on features and things aren't going to be available. And it's, they've kind of said that there are certain tools and features that are only going to be cloud only. And so that's where we really have to raise the voice together to say to Microsoft, it's not acceptable for this to be cloud only. We need this feature. And so going into the channels, the user voice channels, or even going into Yammer and different things like that is a good way to kind of voice out that opinion. So I'm going to pass it over now to, I guess it's this way, to Christian Buckley to see his thoughts on the hybrid, on-prem, cloud-only type scenarios.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, one of my first thoughts was, with the older versions of SharePoint, we used to get this document, and I know it was a lot of customers that would ask for it, certainly while I was inside of Microsoft, for this good, better, best idea. Here's what I have today. We saw that with Office. We saw that with SharePoint. How does what I have today map up to where we're going? And there's always going to be that ask. I think the harder part about where things have evolved into with all of these tools, which are hybrid at best or cloud-based technologies, is you just really need to focus on what are you trying to accomplish for your business and let that drive the business needs versus the technology. And I know we keep saying this over and over and over again, but it is so critical is that you should not go and drive what your business is doing purely based off of what the roadmap is for a technology platform. You need to understand fundamentally what it is that you're trying to do and what can be done with the technology that you have today. So if you are on-prem and your executive team is saying we will only ever be on-prem, that's your world. That's what you need to understand. Do the best that you can with those platforms. And as like Jennifer said, be aware of what's out there and provide feedback. If you see that, look, we're on-prem, but we are hitting this wall. We need this help. We need this capability for our end users. And I see it over there that you're doing this with Office 365 or through Azure or however that it's being enabled in cloud, and provide that feedback back to Microsoft. A great example is that out of the Ignite conference, a number of people were asking about what's going on with Foundation. We have a number of customers that have built out in the nonprofit and education sector, have built out platforms based on the Foundation version, and what's the roadmap for that? And immediately you had Microsoft and Bill Bear specifically saying, here is my email, tweeting it out. Here's my email. Share with me your scenarios. Let us know specifically what you're trying to do and where you're stuck so that we can have those conversations and make sure that what we're building and our strategy going forward incorporates in those scenarios. So I think you're exactly right, Jennifer. They are listening. They want that feedback. And they need the feedback because they're looking at and saying, where are we going to make our investments? And if they see a huge number of customers coming in and asking for a certain capability, then they are going to go and focus on meeting those capabilities. But they need your feedback to be able to do that.
do you think, Eric?
There's a lot of, no surprise here, there's a lot of shared opinions on this panel. And we all know each other very well, so it isn't exactly a shock that we all have very similar views on a lot of this. But Jen, to pick up on what you said, and Christian, to pick up on what you said, I want to put it in a slightly different context, which is if your organization has said we're not going to go into the cloud, we're going to remain on-prem, which isn't a stuck. Take the word stuck out of that equation and just say we're going to remain on-prem. That means you have the opportunity to, I hate to use this word, but delve deep into what you've got and get it right. Right? So a lot of the confusion, thank you very much, I'll be here for at least the next 5 minutes. A lot of the confusion with what's happening right now in the technology is the technology, right? When you look at all these products, 365, and you look at Yammer, and you look at all these online suites of products, I started off this conversation today talking about the confusion that people are having because they don't know where to put information, therefore they don't know where to get what they need. And if you don't know where to get the content, you're in big trouble. If you have one platform and you're not worrying about where to find some of these things, stick with what you know. Just because it's the latest and greatest doesn't always mean that it's the best. So refocus your efforts, work on your strategies, work on getting your executives together, make your investments as appropriate. But you really have the opportunity here to be empowered and to get this right. So don't look at it as a negative. Turn it into a positive. Focus on your organization.
Ben, do you have anything to add? Awesome. Well, it has been super fun chatting with everybody today. I would like to thank a couple of people from the chat room that have joined us today. Ruben Gotts, thank you so much for posting in there. I believe that's Richard Harbridge that's also been posting in there. And also Bob Fox from Microsoft. Definitely appreciate you guys coming in and helping us field some of the questions and giving feedback in the chat room. It makes for a very nice experience. So we have enjoyed having this panel with you guys. We also have several other panels today and some other great sessions coming, so I hope we'll stick around and get to hang out with us for the rest of Unity Connect. So thanks, everyone. We will see you guys next time.